Hi everyone, this is Kathleen Wainwright from KathleenWainwright.com, Not So Wimpy Resources LLC, and today I'm talking to you about how I use readers' companions in the classroom to help differentiate instruction. I'm sharing this because one of my struggles over the last 2 years with the transition to Common Core was the lack of resources that supported a consistent plan for executing lessons that were Common Core aligned. Yes, I could create these lessons, but to say it is overwhelming to build your own curriculum week to week is an understatement. In my district, the School District of Philadelphia, we have a planning and scheduling timeline. This gives us a breakdown of everything that needs to be taught within a given semester. So, if you're anything like me, you sit down weekly with this plan next to you and a ton of reading, or math materials, flipping through trying to find the best story or chapter to teach the highlighted goals or standards for the given week. This is tiresome, for me anyway. I found that, yes, I could use the anthology, but skipping around the text didn't fit well with my OCD personality. I am the type of teacher that, although I rarely use teacher's guides, I like to follow a plan or routine. So previously when teaching from the anthology, even though I did my own thing, I taught story to story so that there was always a consistent way to provide spelling or vocabulary words, etc. I don't know if you can relate to this. Maybe this was my own idiosyncrasy. Whatever the case, it made my planning more predictable and less time consuming. There was no real guesswork about what story I was going to use, and at the time, the focus skills and the reading strategies lined up with the planning and scheduling timeline. All right, so let me backtrack for a second. I taught third grade in fourth grade for a total of 11 years. I've been teaching for a little over 15 years. In both grades, I always wanted to use novels as my source of instruction. I didn't really care for the anthology, but there was little to no flexibility with that. Here was the struggle. I wanted my students to read chapter books instead of a new story each week from the reading text. I got a lot of pushback from my principal. So then I just decided to use chapter books for guided reading or literature circles during my reading workshop time. It became very overwhelming trying to plan my regular lesson plans and then map out a novel study for my small reading groups, especially since each group was reading a different book. I still used the chapter books, but instead of really digging into the text, I created a generic companion for the students to use. This companion could be used with any book, and it worked, but it wasn't my vision. So let's fast forward to December 2014. It is then that I realized, wait, I now have the freedom to teach with chapter books. And that is when my concept of readers' companions was born. A reading companion is a lot like a novel study guide, but it is more for the student and not just for the teacher. It is made up of a series of comprehension questions and activity sheets that reinforce important skills and concepts that can be taught using the text. The students get the companion when we begin the novel, and they work through this companion during class, homework, sometimes small group work. They become married to this text. This is beneficial because the connection is major. Students begin to bring the characters and events into our everyday lessons. They make comparisons, they make connections, they reference the story when describing something else, and it becomes a part of our class. This is important. When students read a different story each week from a reading text, yeah, they may reference it from time to time, but the connection is nothing like when we read a chapter book as a class over a period of a few weeks. So this is how I use the reading companions in my classroom. Although you can use the companion in a variety of ways, this is what I do. I read with the students in class. We discuss the characters and the events and whatever the highlighted focus skill is. This is to provide differentiated opportunities for the students who may be reading slightly below grade level. Listening comprehension is always higher than their independent and instructional reading levels, so by hearing me read it first, they have a good understanding of what is going on in the text. Each night, students are assigned the same chapter to read for homework. Students who are reading below grade level are asked to read with a partner, an older sibling, a parent, a caretaker, someone who's at home with them. They then answer the highlighted open-ended questions. And I always stress the importance of being able to answer open-ended questions because it is a higher order skill. I require the students to provide details and examples to support their thinking from the text. So we do this all year. They get a lot of practice doing this, and it is a great way to integrate test prep into your regular classroom instruction. It is authentic teaching, it is quality teaching versus a test prep book. The next day, we review the questions and I go on to the next chapter, or if the chapter is longer, we might break it up. Ramona Quimby, their chapters are about 15 pages, so we break it up into parts. Well, we broke it up into parts. At the end of the week, there is a chapter checkup, and the students complete an assessment by answering questions that mirror the format of the questions asked on standardized tests. Again, good test prep. We do this until we complete the book. In my newer reader companions, I've included a culminating project to tie together all of the concepts that we've been working on and to provide an alternative assessment. I decided to do an alternative assessment because the students, they complete a short quiz after each chapter, and this is just another fun way for students to recap the book while also showing me what they've learned. So, what are the benefits of using readers' companions for literacy instruction? The list is long. I use reading companions to hit several skills at one time. I am getting a huge bang for my buck, while I'm also instilling good reading habits and a love of reading. This is what I've observed while teaching with the companions. Number one, students begin to regularly make comparisons and connections to the characters in the story and real events. Students develop a stronger connection to the book, which ultimately supports their reading comprehension. By having a stronger understanding of the book and its characters and events, teaching important reading skills is that more easier because students have a strong point of reference. Students develop a nightly reading habit. I know that students are completing the required nightly reading for at least 20 minutes now because it is part of their homework assignment. By having students complete the comprehension questions, it is easier for me to monitor whether or not they are actually reading at night. Reading instruction is more authentic. Because there is a greater investment of time in our reading text, we aren't skipping from story to story each week. Students can practice comprehension strategies over a period of time in a given text. I find that my students gravitate toward the chapter books more now versus the picture books. Planning lessons, for me, are much easier because everything is prepared for me in advance. Instruction becomes routine and easy for my students and for me to follow. It removes the guesswork. The assessments allow me to not only gather grades during this period, but I can also monitor their comprehension throughout this mini-unit. Parents are able to follow along. This is probably one of the greatest benefits of teaching with Readers' Companions. Now my parents are connected to our curriculum. What we do in reading during the day is not something separate from what they are doing at home each evening. I usually have parents who read along with us throughout this mini unit, and then they are able to discuss the book with their child. This is a major home and school connection that parents really appreciate. Overall, I've seen improvement with my students' reading levels, and most importantly, the students who typically couldn't read a chapter book independently now have a sense of accomplishment because they are able to get through it with the class. I now find that the students who were once reluctant to read independently are now actually reading during our silent, sustained reading time and not just flipping through the illustrations. So, if you visit my Teachers Pay Teachers store, right now I have 3 Readers' Companions completed and posted. I have Flat Stanley, which is a childhood classic. The skills that are addressed in this companion are making predictions, cause and effects, summarizing, problem solution, compare, contrast, narrative elements, monitoring comprehension, and a character sketch. Then I have Donovan's Word Jar, a classroom favorite. And the skills that I address in this resource are making predictions, questioning, inferencing, sequencing events, making connections, character sketch, recalling details, citing evidence, problem solution, and compare and contrasting. The last one that I have is Freckle Juice. Freckle Juice, another classroom favorite. We address in this companion making predictions, cause and effect, summarizing, comparing, contrasting, narrative elements, monitoring comprehension, character traits, and asking questions. If you want more information about how I use these readers' companions in class, feel free to stop by my blog, www.kathleenwainwright.com. I have several blog posts on teaching strategies and tips that are good for differentiating instruction in a class, as well as using other activities such as choice boards and readers' companions to promote active learning. So there you have it, Reader's Companions, an innovative way to teach literacy while also encouraging a love for reading. Thank you for listening and stop by again soon. Bye-bye.